Hey y'all, my name is Angelica Rubio, State Representative for District 35 here in Las Cruces, and this is a not so quick update. Also, excuse my eyeliner situation. I was trying to be all badass like Andrea Serrano and it didn't work out. Anyways, so we are just a little over a month before we head up to Santa Fe for the start of the 2025 legislative session. And for folks who don't know, legislative sessions happen every year, but every other year they're different. In odd years, we have the 60-day session, which is our longest session. These longer sessions not only require us under the Constitution to pass a balanced budget, but we also have an opportunity to pass other types of legislation. In even years, so in 2026, it'll just be a 30-day session, and only the budget is allowed during that time, unless the governor, who has the power under the Constitution to make an agenda for those types of sessions, which, by the way, we're trying to change that to through modernization, but that's for another discussion. So there's a lot that happens at a legislative session, and it happens fairly quickly, and at the same time things drag pretty slowly. The slow part, I mean by like, we go in on January 21st, which is the Tuesday after we honor Martin Luther King Jr. We start at noon and it's opening day, and we hear from the governor where she will give her State of the State address. She will provide all her say all her priorities, and then we will also be sworn in again, especially those people who were newly elected. And we will get assigned our new committees if there's any changes, and the start of being able to introduce legislation happens. Each chamber, depending on if you are a senator or a representative, you have to introduce your legislation through each of your individual chambers. So, for example, I am going to have several bills that I'm working on that I will introduce in the House. The speaker will read out the bill and then will assign it to committees. And then those committees will then will hear the bill and will vote yes or no on the bills. And then if they pass both committees, then they will head to the House floor, where if I have enough votes, it'll pass. But then it still has to go through the Senate. It'll still have to be read out to the Senate. It'll still have to be assigned to committees in the Senate. It'll still have to have debate in the Senate, on the Senate floor. And then if I have all the votes on the Senate floor and there are no changes since it left the House, then it goes up to the governor for passage. That's a lot. It's a lot of work to get one idea through all of those processes for it to eventually get to the governor, for the governor to sign it into law. I share all of this because it's important for folks to understand what we mean by checks and balances. A lot of times a bill will be drafted, it will be introduced, and this is why it's important for the committee process and why you all should follow committee process and show up for public comment, especially virtually, because there could be a legislator who maybe, if I'm introducing a legislation around housing, if there's a legislator who is like a landlord, for example, and doesn't like my bill that's related to changes in sources of income, for example, and allowing certain types of income to be allowed, that legislator could say, no, we should change it, we should amend it, and it should look like this. That could happen. Like, they could convince other members of the committee to do that. And so my bill could look different, leaving one committee to the next. And so we try to have as much work done initially before session starts, so it doesn't get boggled down in committee. We can pass it in committee, and then we can pass it through the House floor, and then hopefully get it through the Senate. Historically, with the Senate, sometimes our bills won't even get heard in committee. Like, chairs have so much power, and it's very frustrating, especially on the Senate side, because there are chairs who hold on to so much of this power that they will actually never hear the bill if they choose not to. Hopefully, because of the way that the politics have changed, or not the politics, but we've expanded more people into the Senate, hopefully that will change, but it's not guaranteed. And so that's the path that a piece of legislation has to move through. And so it can be daunting for sure, but it can also be it's also really an important part of the process, because maybe somebody does have a good idea and it actually makes your bill better. Does this process work for our communities? No. It's always a process that will leave somebody out, and that's frustrating. And in the meantime, this is the process that we have available to us, and this is where I encourage so many folks to get involved in the process, especially in preparation for session. For my organizer friends, I always talk to them about this process as being a tool for the organizing, but not the organizing itself. We will never pass transformational legislation within a legislature, ever. Like, nobody will ever be happy with what we pass, because there will always be someone left out of this process. And that is why we have to continue to organize on the ground, regardless of what's happening at the state capitol. And so heading into session in January, it's important to just have these expectations already ready without setting them way too high, because we don't always get what we want, but we have to celebrate the wins that we do get, because it's progress. Even as slow as it can be, it's still progress that our communities need to feel and need to see. So that's it. I mean, I will continue to update you all on stuff. I have some bills that I'm working on directly as main sponsor, but I'm also supporting a lot of my colleagues, especially because we have a housing caucus that I've been working with throughout the year. We have some really cool, two good pieces that are being drafted right now related to housing. And then, of course, a lot of immigration related stuff to protect our families under the next administration. And then, of course, the modernization piece. Let me know if you all have any questions about process, about how you want to get involved, about how, just anything. And I'm happy to answer. And I will definitely be updating as much as I can once session starts. Peace.